Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So, as you know, Tuesday means Type 2 or Standard Tuesday. So today we're going to be checking out a super sweet Eldrazi list that recently took Eastsider 29 to a 5-0 finish in a league on Magic Online. So congrats to Eastsider on their finish with the deck. A quick reminder before we break it all down, if you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So in the past, we've seen Eldrazi lists in Standard that are pretty much looking to go big. You're looking to get up to Ulamogs and Kozileks and Oblivion Swords. This list is kind of on the opposite end. This is like a mono-black, colorless / devoid aggro list that's looking to take advantage of a lot of cheap Eldrazi with some really powerful abilities when you cast them or when they enter the battlefield. So a couple of the key cards in the deck, as far as Eldrazi go, are Bearer of Silence and Wasteland Strangler. So Bearer of Silence is a efficient flyer that's also a edict. So if you pay 4 mana instead of 2 mana, you can make your opponent sack a creature when you cast Bearer of Silence. So it's kind of removal, gives you some tempo. You can also just play it as a 2/1 flyer. Wasteland Strangler actually matches up really well with the format. It kills Reflector Mages and Thraben Inspectors and Spell Quellers, all that stuff. Selfless Spirit, even with the indestructibility stuff. So it does a lot in the format. You have to have fuel for it, cards in your opponent's exile zone, but the deck has some ways of doing that. So these are 2 of the key cards. As far as the rest of the Eldrazi, we do have the 4 Thought-Knot Seers. Works well with Wasteland Strangler. You exile a card from your opponent's hand, then Wasteland Strangler can process that card to give something -3/-3, and then Distended Mindbender is kind of the top end of the curve. Makes your opponent discard a couple cards, a big body, you can emerge it on the cheap, and the deck has a lot of good creatures for emerging. So Scrap Heap Scrounger, pretty much a combo with Emerge because you can always get it back from your graveyard. Also just an aggressive early game threat. Matter Reshaper, fine on its own. When it dies, you get another card in one way or another. If it's cheap, it goes on the battlefield. If not, it goes to your hand. Another good Emerge target, and even a single Pilgrim's Eye to make sure you have the black mana you need. The deck is actually playing a lot of colorless lands, so sometimes you might want it to search out a swamp. Otherwise, it works really well for emerging. The rest of the creatures and pseudo-creatures in the main deck, a single Reality Smasher, which can be very efficient for killing Gideons, Planeswalkers, or just getting in at your opponent's face. And then 4 Smugglers Chopper, a single Sky Sovereign. This is kind of a package that we see almost every aggro deck playing. It's such a low opportunity cost with how powerful these effects are. If you're playing a somewhat aggressive deck, you're likely doing it wrong if you're not finding room for 4 Smugglers Chopper and probably a single Sky Sovereign as well, which can be crewed up by Matter Reshaper, can be crewed up by actually a lot of creatures in this deck on their own, which makes it a really nice fit. The deck also has a few Exile Effects, and these cards do double duty. So on one hand, they fuel Wasteland Strangler, which is really important. One of the best openings this deck can have is turn 2 Transgress the Mind, turn 3 Wasteland Strangler, kill your opponent's 2-drop, 3-drop, and then completely disregard. Not a super powerful removal spell because it's very restricted, only hits creatures with power 3 or less, but it is instant speed that does get a lot of creatures, Spell Quellers and Reflector Mages, all that stuff we've been talking about. Plus it does fuel the Wasteland Strangler. The rest of the spells, a couple of Harsh Scrutiny, so a lot of discard in this deck, and then a single Ruinous Path, mostly for Planeswalkers, but can get a creature in the pinch. Mana base, Ruins of Orin Reef, pumps up your colorless creatures, and literally every single creature in this deck is colorless, so it works really well with this deck. If you flood out a little bit, this is a way you can get more advantage out of your lands. Corrupted Crossroads is a colorless land that can also help you cast your black spells like Wasteland Strangler, Bearer of Silence. Aether Hub, kind of the same way. You can use it for colorless mana when you need to, also use it to cast black spells, and even a Crumbling Vestige, and then just 10 Swamps. In the sideboard, we have Flaying Tendrils, more exiling effects, very good against go-wide creature strategies, Ruinous Path for more Planeswalker decks, Wasteland Strangler in aggressive matchups with lots of small creatures, just an all-star, and then Collective Brutality kind of does it all, can be a duress, can be a removal spell, can gain you some life. We do have more discard, Harsh Scrutiny and Pick the Brain, a couple more creatures. Reality Smasher is a great finisher in some matchups. If you can sneak this in against control decks, it's just such a fast clock. It's a 2-for-1 if your opponent wants to kill it, and then Cletus hates on the graveyard, gains you some life. Liliana the Last Hope is a 1-of, and a couple of Lost Legacies if you're worried about losing to Emrakuls and Ulamogs and stuff like that, maybe from the Aetherworks Marvel deck. So that is Mono-Black Eldrazi for Kaladesh Standard, and that's been our instant deck tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.